श्री महाभारत कथा। श्री महाभारत कथा। महाभारत कथा। कथा है पुरुषार्थ की, ये स्वार्थ की, परमार्थ की, सारथी जिसके बने श्री कृष्ण भारत पाथ की। शब्द दिग्घोषित हुआ जब सत्य सार्थक सर्वथा। शब्द दिग्घोषित हुआ। यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत, अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य, तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्, परित्राणाय साधूनां, विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां, धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे।
Having bowed down to Narayana and Nara, the most exalted male being, and also to the goddess Saraswati, must the word Jaya be uttered. Ugrasrava, the son of Lomaharshana, surnamed Soti, well versed in the Puranas, bending with humility, one day approached the great sages of rigid vows, sitting at their ease, who had attended the 12 years' sacrifice of Sonaka, surnamed Kulapati, in the forest of Namisha. Those ascetics, wishing to hear his wonderful narrations, presently began to address him, who had thus arrived at that recluse abode of the inhabitants of the forest of Namisha. Having been entertained with due respect by those holy men, he saluted those munis, sages, with joined palms, even all of them, and inquired about the progress of their asceticism. Then, all the ascetics being again seated, the son of Lomaharshana humbly occupied the seat that was assigned to him. Seeing that he was comfortably seated, and recovered from fatigue, one of the rishis, beginning the conversation, asked him, "Whence comest thou, O lotus-eyed Sati, and where hast thou spent the time? Tell me who asked thee in detail." Accomplished in speech, Sati, thus questioned, gave in the midst of that big assemblage of contemplative munis a full and proper answer in words consonant with their mode of life. Sati said, having heard the diverse sacred and wonderful stories which were composed in his Mahabharata by Krishna Dwapayana, and which were recited in full by Vasampayana at the snake sacrifice of the high-souled royal sage Janamejaya, and in the presence also of that chief of princes, the son of Kurukshetra, and having wandered about, visiting many sacred waters, visited to the country venerated. Thence, anxious to see you, I am come into your presence. Ye reverend sages, all of whom are to me as Brahma. Ye greatly blessed who shine in this place of sacrifice, with the splendor of the solar fire. Ye who have concluded the silent meditations, and have fed the holy fire, and yet who are sitting without care. What, O ye Dwyas, twice born, shall I repeat? Shall I recount the sacred stories Kalechastudi, and of world? The Rishi replied, the Purana first promulgated by the great Rishi Dwapayana, and which after having been heard both by the gods and the Brahmarshis, was highly esteemed. Being the most eminent narrative that exists, diversified both in diction and division, possessing subtile meanings logically combined, and gleaned from the Vedas, is a sacred work. Composed in elegant language, it includeth the subjects of other books. It is elucidated by other Shastras, and comprehendeth the sense of the four Vedas. We are desirous of hearing that history also called Bharata, the holy composition of the wonderful Vyasa, which dispelleth the fear of evil, just as it was cheerfully recited by the Rishi Vaisampayana, under the direction of Dwaipayana himself, at the snake sacrifice of Raja Janamejaya. Zati then said, having bowed down to the primordial being Isana, to whom multitudes make offerings, and who is adored by the multitude, who is the true incorruptible one, Brahma, perceptible, imperceptible, eternal, who is both a non-existing and an existing non-existing being, universe and also distinct from the existing and non-existing universe, who is the creator of high and low, the ancient, exalted, inexhaustible one, who is Vishnu, beneficent and the beneficence itself, worthy of all preference, pure and immaculate, guide of all things movable and immovable. I will declare the sacred thoughts of the illustrious sage Vyasa, of marvelous deeds, and worshipped here by all. Dimai. Some bards have already published this history. Some are now teaching it. Others, in like manner, will hereafter promulgate it upon the earth. It is a great source of knowledge established throughout the three regions of the world. It is possessed by the twice-born, both in detailed and compendious forms. It is the delight of the learned for being embellished with elegant expressions, conversations, human and divine, and a variety of poetical measures. In this world, when it was destitute of brightness and light, and enveloped all around in total darkness, there came into being, as the primal cause of creation, a mighty egg, the one inexhaustible seed of all created beings. It is called Mahadevya, and was formed at the beginning of the Yuga, in which we are told was the true light Brahma, the Eternal One, the wonderful and inconceivable being, present alike in all places, the invisible and subtile cause, whose nature partaketh of entity and non-entity. From this egg came out the Lord Pitamaha Brahma, the one only Prajapati, with Suraguru and Stanu. Then appeared the 21 Prajapatis, viz., Manu, Vasishtha, and Parameshti, 10 Prachetas, Daksha, and the 7 sons of Daksha. Then appeared the man of inconceivable nature, whom all the rishis know, and so the Visvideva, the Adityas, the Vasus, and the twin Aswin, the Yakshas, the Thi, Sadyas, the Pisachas, the Goyakas, and the Petris. After these were produced the wise and most holy Brahmashas, and the numerous Rajarshis, distinguished by every noble quality. So the water, the heavens, the earth, the air, the sky, the points of the heavens, the years, the seasons, the months, the fortnights, called Pakshas, with day and night in due succession. And thus were produced all things which are known to mankind. And what is seen in the universe, whether animate or inanimate, of created things, will at the end of the world, after the expiration of the Yuga, be again confounded. And, at the commencement of other Yugas, all things will be renovated, and like the various fruits of the earth, succeed each other in the due order of their seasons. thus continueth perpetually to revolve in the world without beginning and without end, this wheel which causeth the destruction of all things. Don't they down, then sometimes there. The generation of Devas, in brief, was 33,333. The sons of Div were Brihadbanu, Chakshus, Atmavibhavasu, Savita, Richika, Arka, Bhanu, Asavaha, and Ravi. Of these Vivas ones, of old, Mahya was the youngest, whose son was Devavrata. The latter had for his son Suvrata, who we learn had 3 sons, Dasajoti, Satajoti, and Sahasrajoti, each of them producing numerous offspring. The illustrious Dasajoti had 10,000, Satajoti 10 times that number, and Sahasrajoti 10 times the number of Satajoti's offspring. From these are descended the family of the Kurus, of the Yadus, and of Bharata, the family of Yayati, of all the Rajarshis. Numerous also were the generations produced, and very abundant were the creatures and their places of abode. The mystery which is threefold, the Vedas, Yoga, and Vijnana, Dharma, Artha, and Kama, also various books upon the subject of Dharma, Artha, and Kama, also rules for the conduct of mankind, also histories and discourses with various Shrutis, all of which having been seen by the Rishi Vyasa, are here in due order mentioned as a specimen of the Janamejaya, the Shuniyist. The Rishi Vyasa published this mass of knowledge in both a detailed and an abridged form. It is the wish of the learned in the world to possess the details and the abridgment. Some read the Bharata beginning with the initial mantra, invocation, others with the story of Astika, others with Uparichara, while some Brahmanas study the whole. Men of learning display their various knowledge of the institutes in commenting on the composition. Some are skillful in explaining it, while others in remembering its content. 9. The son of Satyavati, having, by penance and meditation, analyzed the eternal Veda, afterwards composed this holy history, when that learned Brahmarshi of strict vows, the noble Dvaipayana Vyasa, offspring of Parasara, had finished this greatest of narrations, he began to consider how he might teach it to his disciples. The Vedanta, I see. And the possessor of the 6 attributes, Brahma, the world's preceptor, knowing of the anxiety of the Rishi Dvaipayana, came in person to the place where the latter was, for gratifying the saint and benefiting the people. And when Vyasa, surrounded by all the tribes of Munis, saw him, he was surprised, and standing with joined palms, he bowed and ordered a seat to be brought. And Vyasa, having gone round him who is called Hiranyagarbha, seated on that distinguished seat, stood near it, and being commanded by Brahma Parameshti, he sat down near the seat, full of affection and smiling in joy. Then the greatly glorious Vyasa, addressing Brahma Parameshti, said, O divine Brahma, by me a poem hath been composed which is greatly respected. The mystery of the Veda, and what other subjects have been explained by me. The various rituals of the Upanishads with the Angas, the compilation of the Angas, the compilation of the Puranas and history formed by me and named after the 3 divisions of time, past, present, and future. The determination of the nature of decay, fear, disease, existence, and non-existence, a description of creeds and of the various modes of life, rule for the forecasts, and the import of all the Puranas, an account of asceticism and of the duties of a religious student. The dimensions of the sun and moon, the planets, constellations, and stars, together with the duration of the 4 ages, the Rik, Sama, and Yajur Vedas, also the Adhyatma, the sciences called Nyaya, or Thoaphy, and the sciences called treatment of diseases, charity, and Pasupatadharma, birth celestial and human, for particular purposes. Also a description of places of pilgrimage and other holy places, of rivers, mountains, forests, the ocean, of heavenly cities and the kalpas, the art of war, the different kinds of nations and languages, the nature of the manners of the people, and the all-pervading spirit. All these have been represented. But, after all, no writer of this work is to be found on earth. Rama said, I esteem thee for thy knowledge of divine mysteries. Before the whole body of celebrated Munis distinguished for the sanctity of their lives, I know thou hast revealed the divine word, even from its first utterance, in the language of truth. Thou hast called thy present work a poem, wherefore it shall be a poem. There shall be no poets whose works may equal the descriptions of this poem, even as the 3 other modes called asrama are ever unequal in merit to the domestic asrama. Let Ganesha be thought of, O Muni, for the purpose of writing the poem. Zauti said. Rama, having thus spoken to Vyasa, retired to his own abode. Then Vyasa began to call to mind Ganesha, and Ganesha, obviator of obstacles, ready to fulfill the desires of his votaries, was no sooner thought of than he repaired to the place where Vyasa was seated. And when he had been saluted and was seated, Vyasa addressed him thus, O guide of the Ganas, be thou the writer of the Bharata, which I have formed in my imagination, and which I am about to repeat. Ganesha, upon hearing this address, thus answered, I will become the writer of thy work, provided my pen do not for a moment cease writing. And Vyasa said unto that divinity, wherever there be anything thou dost not comprehend, cease to continue writing. Ganesha, having signified his assent by repeating the word Am, proceeded to write, and Vyasa began. By way of diversion, he knit the knots of composition exceeding close, by doing which he dictated this work according to his engagement. I am, continued Sati, acquainted with 8,800 verses, and so is Sukha, and perhaps Sanjaya. But, from the mysteriousness of their meaning, O Muni, no one is able to this day to penetrate those closely knit, difficult slokas. Even the omniscient Ganesha took a moment to consider, while Vyasa, however, continued to compose other verses in great abundance. The wisdom of this work, like unto an instrument of applying collyrium, hath opened the eyes of the inquisitive world, blinded by the darkness of ignorance. As the sun dispelleth the darkness, so doth the Bharata, by its discourses on religion, profit, pleasure, and final release, dispel the ignorance of men. As the full moon by its mild light expandeth the buds of the water lily, so this Purana, by exposing the light of the Shruti, hath expanded the human intellect. By the lamp of history, which destroyeth the darkness of ignorance, The whole mansion of nature is properly and completely illuminated. This work is a tree, of which the chapter of contents is the seed. The divisions called Paloma and Astika are the root. The part called Sambhava is the trunk. The books called Sabha and Aranya are the roosting perches. The books called Virata and Udyoga, the pith. The book named Bhishma, the main branch. The book called Drona, the leaves. The book called Karna, the fair flowers. The book named Salya, their sweet smell. The books entitled Stri and Aishika, the refreshing shade. The book called Santi, the mighty fruit. The book called Aswamindha, the immortal sap, the denominated as Ramavasika, the spot where it groweth. And the book called Mausala is an epitome of the Vedas, and held in great respect by the virtuous Brahmanas. This tree, inexhaustible to mankind as the clouds, shall be as a source of livelihood to all distinguished poets. Zoti continued, I will now speak of the undying flowery and fruitful productions of this tree, possessed of pure and pleasant taste, and not to be destroyed even by the immortals. Formerly, the spirited and virtuous Krishna Dwapayana, by the injunctions of Bhishma, the wise son of Ganga and of his own mother, became the father of 3 boys, who were like the 3 fires by the 2 wives of Vishitra. Having thus raised up Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vijora, he returned to his recluse abode to prosecute his religious exercise. It was not till after these were born, grown up, and departed on the supreme journey, that the great Rishi Vyasa published the Bharata in this region of mankind. When being solicited by Janamejaya and thousands of Brahmanas, he instructed his disciple Vaisampayana, who was seated near him. And he, sitting together with the Sadasiyas, recited the Bharata during the intervals of the ceremonies of the sacrifice, being repeatedly urged to proceed. Vyasa hath fully represented the greatness of the house of Kuru, the virtuous principles of Gandhari, the wisdom of Vijora, and the constancy of Kunti. The noble Rishi hath also described the divinity of Vasudeva, the rectitude of the sons of Pandu, and the evil practices of the sons and partisans of Dhritarashtra. Vyasa executed the compilation of the Bharata, exclusive of the episodes originally in 24,000 verses, and so much only is called by the learned as the Bharata. Afterwards, he composed an epitome in 150 verses, consisting of the introduction with the chapter of contents. This he first taught to his son Sukha, and afterwards he gave it to others of his disciples who were possessed of the same qualifications. After that he executed another compilation, consisting of 600,000 verses. Of those, 300,000 are known in the world of the Devas, 1,500,000 in the world of the Pitris, 1,400,000 among the Gandharvas, and 100,000 in the regions of mankind. Narada recited them to the Devala to the Pitris, and Sukha published them to the Gandharvas, Yakshas, and Rakshasas. And in this world they were recited by Vaisampayana, one of the disciples of Vyasa, a man of just principles, and the first among all those acquainted with the Vedas. Now, Know that I, Sati, have also repeated 100,000 verses. Yudhishthira is a vast tree, formed of religion and virtue. Arjuna is its trunk, Bhimasena, its branches. The two sons of Madri are its full-grown fruit and flowers, and its roots are Krishna, Brahma, and the Brahmanas. Pandu, after having subdued many countries by his wisdom and prowess, took up his abode with the Manas in a certain forest as a sportsman, where he brought upon himself a very severe misfortune for having killed a stag coupling with its mate, which served as a warning for the conduct of the princes of his house as long as they lived. I know. Their mothers, in order that the ordinances of the law might be fulfilled, admitted as substitutes to their embraces the gods Dharma, Vayu, Sakra, and the divinities, the twin Aswins. And when their offspring grew up, under the care of their two mothers, in the society of ascetics, in the midst of sacred groves, and holy recluse abodes of religious men, they were conducted by rishis into the presence of Dhritarashtra and his sons, following as students in the habit of brahmacharas, having their hair tied in knots on their heads. These are pupils, said they, are as your sons, your brothers, and your friends. They are Pandavas. Saying this, the Munis disappeared. When the Kauravas saw them introduced as the sons of Pandu, the distinguished class of citizens shouted exceedingly for joy. Some, however, said they were not the sons of Pandu. Others said they were, while a few asked how they could be his offspring, seeing he had been so long dead. Still, on all sides, voices were heard crying, "They are on all accounts welcome. Through divine providence we behold the family of Pandu. Let their welcome be proclaimed." As these acclamations ceased, the plaudits of invisible spirits, causing every point of the heavens to resound, were tremendous. There were showers of sweet-scented flowers, and the sound of shells and kettle drums. Such were the wonders that happened on the arrival of the young princes. The joyful noise of all the citizens, in expression of their satisfaction on the occasion, was so great that it reached the very heavens in magnifying plaudits. Having studied the whole of the Vedas and sundry other Shastras, the Pandavas resided there, respected by all, and without apprehension from anyone. The principal men were pleased with the purity of Yudhishthira, the courage of Arjuna, the submissive attention of Kunti to her superiors, and the humility of the twins, Nakula and Sahadeva, and all the people rejoiced in their heroic virtue. After a while, Arjuna obtained the virgin Krishna at the Swayamvara, in the midst of a concourse of rajas, by performing a very difficult feat of archery. And from this time, he became very much respected in this world among all bowmen. And in fields of battle also, like the sun, he was hard to behold by foemen. And having vanquished all the neighboring princes and every considerable tribe, he accomplished all that was necessary for the Raja, his eldest brother, to perform the great sacrifice called Rajasuya. Yudhishthira, after having, through the wise counsels of Vasudeva, and by the valor of Bhimasena and Arjuna, slain Jarasandha, the king of Magadha, and the proud Chaitya, acquired the right to perform the grand sacrifice of Rajasuya, abounding in provisions and all fraught with proud, transcendent merits. And Duryodhana came to this sacrifice. And when he beheld the vast wealth of the Pandavas scattered all around, the offerings, the precious stones, gold and jewels, the wealth in cows, elephants and horses, the curious textures, garments and mantles, the precious shawls and furs and carpets made of the skin of the rancu, he was filled with envy and became exceedingly displeased. And when he beheld the hall of assembly elegantly constructed by Maya, the Ashura architect, after the fashion of a celestial court, he was inflamed with rage, and having started in confusion at certain architectural deceptions within this building, he was derided by Bhimasena in the presence of Vasudeva like one of mean descent. No, they saw. And it was represented to Dhritarashtra that his son, while partaking of various objects of enjoyment and diverse precious things, was becoming meager, wan, and pale. And Dhritarashtra, some time after, out of affection for his son, gave his consent to their playing with the Pandavas at dice. And Vasudeva, coming to know of this, became exceedingly wroth, and being dissatisfied, he did nothing to prevent the disputes, but overlooked the gaming and sundry other horrid, unjustifiable transactions arising therefrom. In spite of Vijura, Bhishma, Drona, and Kripa, he made the Kshatriyas kill each other in the terrific war that ensued. Dhritarashtra, hearing the ill news of the success of the Pandavas, and recollecting the resolutions of Duryodhana, Karna, and Sakuni, pondered for a while, and addressed to Sanjaya the following speech. Attend, O Sanjaya, to all I am about to say, and it will not become thee to treat me with contempt. Thou art well versed in the Shastras, intelligent and endowed with wisdom. My inclination was never to war, not did I delight in the destruction of my race. I made no distinction between my own children and the children of Pandu. My own sons were prone to willfulness and despised me because I am old. Blind as I am, because of my miserable plight, and through paternal affection, I bore it all. I was foolish, Alta, the thoughtless Duryodhana, ever growing in folly. Having been a spectator of the riches of the mighty sons of Pandu, my son was derided for his awkwardness while ascending the hall. Unable to bear it all, and unable himself to overcome the sons of Pandu in the field, and though a soldier, unwilling yet to obtain good fortune by his own exertion, with the help of the king of Gandhara, he concerted an unfair game at dice. Here, when I heard that Subhadra of the race of Madhu had, after forcible seizure, been married by Arjuna, the city of Dwaraka, and that the two heroes of the race of Vrishni, Krishna and Balarama, the brothers of Subhadra, without resenting it, had entered Indraprastha as friends, then, O Sanjaya, no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, by his celestial arrow preventing the downpour, by Indra, the king of the gods, had gratified Agni by making over to him the forest of Khandava, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the 5 Pandavas with their mother Kunti had escaped from the house of Lak, and that Vijora was engaged in the accomplishment of their designs, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, after having pierced the mark in the arena, had won Draupadi, and that the brave Panchalas had joined the Pandavas, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Jarasandha, the foremost of the royal line of Magadha, and blazing in the midst of the Kshatriyas, had been slain by Bhima with his bare arms alone, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that in their general campaign the sons of Pandu had conquered the chiefs of the land and performed the grand sacrifice of the Rajasuya, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Draupadi, her voice choked with tears and heart full of agony, in the season of impurity, and with but one raiment on, had been dragged into court, and though she had protectors, she had been treated as if she had none, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the wicked wretch Dasasana was striving to strip her of that single garment, had only drawn from her person a large heap of cloth, without being able to arrive at its end, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yudhishthira, beaten by Sabala at the game of dice, and deprived of his kingdom as a consequence thereof, had still been attended upon by his brothers of incomparable prowess, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the virtuous Pandavas, weeping with affliction, had followed their elder brother to the wilderness, and exerted themselves variously for the mitigation of his discomforts, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yudhishthira had been followed into the wilderness by Snatakas and noble-minded Brahmanas who live upon alms, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, having in combat pleased the god of gods, Triambaka, the three-eyed, in the disguise of a hunter, obtained the great weapon Pasupata, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the just and renowned Arjuna, after having been to the celestial regions, had there obtained celestial weapons from Indra himself, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that afterwards Arjuna had vanquished the Kalakiyas and the Palamas, proud with the boon they had obtained, and which had rendered them invulnerable even to the celestials, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, the chastiser of enemies, having gone to the regions of Indra for the destruction of the Asuras, had returned thence successful, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhima and the other sons of Pritha, Kunti, accompanied by Vaisravana, had arrived at that country which is inaccessible to man, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that my sons, guided by the counsels of Karna while on their journey of Ghoshayatra, had been taken prisoners by the Gandharvas, and were set free by Arjuna, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Dharma, the god of justice, having come under the form of a yaksha, had proposed certain questions to Yudhishthira, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that my sons had failed to discover the Pandavas under their disguise while residing with Draupadi in the dominions of Bharata, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the principal men of my side had all been vanquished by the noble Arjuna with a single chariot, while residing in the dominions of Bharata, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Kama and Duryodhana resolved upon imprisoning Krishna displayed in himself the whole universe, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. Then I heard that at the time of his departure, Pritha, Kunti, standing, full of sorrow, near his chariot received consolation from Krishna. Then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Vasudeva and Bhishma, the son of Santanu, were the counselors of the Pandavas, and Drona, the son of Bharadwaja, pronounced blessings on them, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When Kama said unto Bhishma, I will not fight when thou art fighting, and, quitting the army, went away, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Vasudeva and Arjuna and the Bhag and Deva of immeasurable prowess, these three of dreadful energy, had come together, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon Arjuna having been seized with compunction on his chariot, and ready to sink, Krishna showed him all the worlds within his body, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhishma, the desolator of foes, killing 10,000 charioteers every day in the field of battle, had not slain any amongst the Pandavas, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhishma, the righteous son of Ganga, had himself indicated the means of his defeat in the field of battle, and that the same were accomplished by the Pandavas with joyfulness, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, having placed Sikhandin before himself in his chariot, had wounded Bhishma, of infinite courage and invincible in battle, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the aged hero Bhishma, having reduced the numbers of the race of Shamaka to a few, overcome with various wounds, was lying on a bed of arrows, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon Bhishma's lying on the ground with thirst for water, Arjuna, being requested, had pierced the ground and allayed his thirst, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When Bayu together with Indra and Surya, united as allies for the success of the sons of Kunti and the beasts of prey, by their inauspicious presence, were putting us in fear, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When the wonderful warrior Drona, displaying various modes of fight in the field, did not slay any of the superior Pandavas, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the Maharatha, Sansaptakas of our army, appointed for the overthrow of Arjuna, were all slain by Arjuna himself, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that our disposition of forces, impenetrable by others, and defended by Bharadwaja himself well armed, had been singly forced and entered by the brave son of Subhadra, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that our Maharathas, unable to overcome Arjuna, with jubilant faces after having jointly surrounded and slain the boy Upamanyu, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the blind Kauravas were shouting for joy after having slain Abhimanyu, and that thereupon Arjuna, in anger, made his celebrated speech referring to Saintava. Then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna had vowed the death of Saintava and fulfilled his vow in the presence of his enemies, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that at the time of his departure, Pratha, Kunti, standing, full of sorrow, near his chariot received consolation from Krishna, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Vasudeva and Bhishma, the son of Santanu, were the counselors of the Pandavas, and Drona, the son of Bharadwaja, pronounced blessings on them, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When Kama said unto Bhishma, I will not fight when thou art fighting, and quitting the army went away, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Vasudeva and Arjuna and the bow Gandiva of immeasurable prowess, these three of dreadful energy had come together, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon Arjuna, having been seized with compunction on his chariot, and ready to sink, Krishna showed him all the worlds within his body, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhishma, the desolator of foes, killing 10,000 charioteers every day in the field of battle, had not slain any amongst the Pandavas, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhishma, the righteous son of Ganga, had himself indicated the means of his defeat in the field of battle, and that the same were accomplished by the Pandavas with joyfulness, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, with Sikandin standing before him, directed the arrow at Bhishma, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the invincible Bhishma fell on the ground covered with arrows, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that on the fall of Bhishma, all the warriors on the battlefield stood still and silent, weeping for their beloved leader, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Drishtadyumna arose in the midst of the army, filled with the spirit of vengeance for the fallen Bhishma, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Dronakarya, enraged by the death of Bhishma, vowed to destroy the Pandavas with his unparalleled skills, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon the rising of the sun, Arjuna stood ready, fueled by vengeance and honor, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Duryodhana and the Kauravas, filled with vengeance and fury, prepared to march against the Pandavas, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Krishna, standing between the armies, signified the importance of Dharma and the rightful course of action, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the infinitely brave Karna, invincible in battle, was slain by Arjuna in that war of brothers, mysterious even to the gods, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yudhishthira, the dust, overcame the heroic son of Drona, Duryodhana, and the fierce Kritavarman, Then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the brave king of Madra, who ever dared Krishna in battle, was slain by Yudhishthira, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the wicked Suvala of magic power, the root of the gaming and the feud, was slain in battle by Sahadeva, the son of Pandu, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Duryodhana, spent with fatigue, having gone to a lake and made a refuge for himself within its waters, was lying there alone, his strength gone and without a chariot, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the Pandavas, having gone to that lake accompanied by Vasudeva, began to address contemptuously my son, who was incapable of putting up with affronts, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that, while displaying in circles a variety of curious modes of attack and defense in an encounter with clubs, he was unfairly slain according to the counsels of Krishna, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the son of Drona and others, by slaying the Panchalas and the sons of Draupadi in their sleep, perpetrated a horrible and infamous deed, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Aswathaman, while being pursued by Bhimasena, had discharged the first of weapons called Aishika, by which the embryo in the womb of Archara was wounded, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the weapon Brahmashira, discharged by Aswathaman, was repelled by Arjuna with another weapon over which he had pronounced the word Sasti, and that Aswathaman had to give up the jewel-like excrescence on his head, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon the embryo in the womb of Bharata's daughter being wounded by Aswathaman with a mighty weapon, Dwaipayana and Krishna pronounced curses on him, then, O Sanjaya, I had no hope of success. Alas, Gandhari, destitute of children, grandchildren, parents, brothers, difficult is to be pitied. Difficult is the task that hath been performed by the Pandavas. By them hath the kingdom been recovered without a... Alas, I have heard that the war hath left only 10 alive, 3 of our side, and the Pandavas 7. In that dreadful conflict, 18 Akshauhinis of Kshatriyas have been slain. All around me is utter darkness, and a fit of swoon assaileth me. Consciousness leaves me, O Suta, and my mind is distracted. It seemed foul. After what hath come to pass, O Sanjaya, I wish to put an end to my life without delay. I do not find the least advantage in cherishing it any longer.
Thou hast heard, O Raja, of the greatly powerful men of vast exertions, spoken of by Vyasa and the wise Narada, men born of great royal families, resplendent with worthy qualities, versed in the science of celestial arms, and in glory emblems of Indra, men who, having conquered the world by justice, and performed sacrifices with fit offerings to the Brahmanas, obtained renown in this world, and at last succumbed to the sway of time. Such were Savya, the valiant Maharatha, Srinjaya, great amongst conquerors, Suhotra, Rantideva, and Kakshivanta, great in glory, Valika, Damana, Saryati, Ajita, and Nala, Viswamitra the destroyer of foes, Amvarisha, great in strength, Maruta, Manu, Ikshaku, Gaya, and Bharata, Rama, the son of Dasaratha, Sasavindu, and Bhagaratha, Gretavirya, the greatly fortunate, and Janamejaya too, and Yayati of good deeds who performed sacrifices, being assisted therein by the celestials themselves, and by whose sacrificial altars and stakes this earth, with her habited and uninhabited regions, hath been marked all over. These 24 Rajas were formerly spoken of by the celestial Rishi Narada unto Savya, when much afflicted for the loss of his children. Besides these, other Rajas had gone before, still more powerful than they, mighty charioteers noble in mind, and resplendent with every worthy quality. These were Puru, Kuru, Yadu, Sura, and Viswasrava of great glory, Anuha, Yuvanaswu, Kakutstha, Vikrami, and Raghu, Vijava, Virihorta, Anga, Bihava, Sweta, and Vripad Guru, Uzinara, Sataratha, Kanka, Duriduha, Andruma, Damhodbhava, Para, Vena, Sagara, Sankr, and holy Deva Vrida, Devahuya, Supratika, and Vrihad Ratha, Mahatsaha, Vinitatma, Sukratu, and Nala, the king of the Nishadas, Satyavrata, Santabhaya, Sumitra, and the chief Subala, Januyangha, Anaranya, Arka Priyabritya, Chuchivrata, Balabantu, Nirmarda, Ketusringa, and Bridbala, Trishtaketu, Brihatketu, Driptaketu, and Niramaya, Abhikshit, Chapala, Turta, Kritbantu, and Dridhashudi, Mahapurana Sambhavya, Pratyanga, Paraha, and Sruti. Thy sons were malevolent, inflamed with passion, avaricious, and of very evil disposition. Thou art versed in the Sastras, O Bharata, and art intelligent and wise. They never sink under misfortunes whose understandings are guided by the Sastras. Thou art acquainted, O Prince, with the lenity and severity of fate. This anxiety, therefore, for the safety of thy children, is unbecoming. Moreover, it behoveth thee not to grieve for that which must happen. For who can avert, by his wisdom, the decrees of fate? Time createth all things, and time destroyeth all creatures. All states, the good and the evil, in the three worlds, are caused by time. Time cutteth short all things and createth them anew. Time alone is awake when all things are asleep. Indeed, time is incapable of being overcome. Time passeth over all things without being retarded. Knowing, as thou dost, that all things past and future, and all that exist at the present moment, are the offspring of time, it behoveth thee not to throw away thy reason. Zati said, the son of Gavalgana having in this manner administered comfort to the royal Dhritarashtra, overwhelmed with grief for his sons, then restored his mind to peace. Taking these facts for his subject, Dwapayana composed a holy Upanishad that has been published to the world by learned and ain, sacred bards in the Puranas composed by them. The study of the Bharata is an act of piety. He that readeth even 1 foot with belief hath his sins entirely purged away. Herein Devas, Devarshis, and immaculate Brahmarshis of good deeds have been spoken of, and likewise Yakshas and great Uragas, Nagas. Herein also hath been described the eternal Vasudeva, possessing the 6 attributes. He is the true and just, the pure and holy, the eternal Brahma, the supreme soul, the true constant light, whose divine deeds wise and learned recount, from whom hath proceeded the non-existent and existent non-existent universe, with principles of generation and progression,
and birth, death, and rebirth. Aldedentai, Chinwanao, Sabesane. Stri. That also hath been treated of which is called Adhyatma, the superintending spirit of nature. That partaketh of the attributes of the 5 elements. That also hath been described who is Purusha, being above such epithets as undisplayed and the like. Also that which the foremost yada is exempt from. The common destiny, and endued with the power of meditation and tapas, behold dwelling in their hearts as a reflected image in the mirror. The man of faith, devoted to piety, and constant in the exercise of virtue, on reading this section is freed from sin. The believer that constantly heareth recited this section of the Bharata, called the Introduction, from the beginning, falleth not into difficulties. The man repeating any part of the introduction in the 2 twilights is during such act freed from the sins contracted during the day or the night. This section, the body of the Bharata, is truth and nectar. As butter is incurred, Brahmana among bipeds, the Aranyaka among the Vedas, and nectar among medicines. As the sea is eminent among receptacles of water, and the cow among quadrupeds, as are these among the things mentioned, so is the Bharata said to be among histories. No irreg. He that causeth it, even a single foot thereof, to be recited to Brahmanas during a Shraddha, his offerings of food and drink to the manes of his ancestors become inexhaustible. By the aid of history and the Puranas, the Veda may be expounded, but the Veda is afraid of one of little information, lest he should it. The learned man who recites to other this Veda of Vyasa reapeth advantage. It may without doubt destroy even the sin of killing the embryo and the like. He that readeth this holy chapter of the moon, readeth the whole of the Bharata, I ween. The man who, with reverence daily, listeneth to this sacred work, acquireth long life and renown, and ascendeth to heaven. In former days, having placed the 4 Vedas on one side, and the Bharata on the other, these were weighed in the balance by the celestials assembled for that purpose. And as the latter weighed heavier than the 4 Vedas with their mysteries, from that period it hath been called, in the world, Mahabharata, the great Bharata. Being esteemed superior, both in substance and gravity of import, it is denominated Mahabharata on account of such substance and gravity of import. He that knoweth its meaning is saved from all his sins. Tapa is innocent. Study is harmless. The ordinance of the Vedas prescribed for all the tribes are harmless. The acquisition of wealth by exertion is harmless. But when they are abused in their practices, it is then that they become sources of evil. The rishis said, O son of Suta, we wish to hear a full and circumstantial account of the place mentioned by you as Samantapanchaka. Sati said, Listen, O ye Brahmanas, to the sacred descriptions I utter of the place known as Samantapanchaka. In the interval between the Treta and Dwapara Yugas, Rama, the son of Jamadani, great among all as Samantapanchaka, urged by impatience of wrongs, repeatedly smote the noble race of Kshatriyas. He formed at Samantapanchaka 5 lakes of blood. We are told that, his reason being overpowered by anger,
he offered oblations of blood to the manes of his ancestors, standing in the midst of the sanguine waters of those lakes. It was then that his forefathers, of whom Richika was the first, having arrived there, addressed him thus: O Rama, O blessed Rama, O offspring of Brigu, we have been gratified with the reverence thou hast shown for thy ancestors, and with thy valor, O mighty one. Blessings be upon thee. Rama said, If, O fathers, ye are favorably disposed towards me, the boon I ask is that I may be absolved from the sins born of my having annihilated the Kshatriyas in anger, and that the lakes I have formed may become famous in the world as holy shrines. The Pitris then said, So shall it be, but be thou pacified. And Rama was pacified accordingly. The region that lies near unto those lakes of gory water, from that time, has been celebrated as Samanta Panchaka the Holy. The wise have declared that every country should be distinguished by a name significant of some circumstance which may have rendered it famous. In the interval between the Dwapara and the Kali Yugas, there happened at Samanta Panchaka the encounter between the armies of the Kauravas and the Pandavas. In that holy region, without ruggedness of any kind, were assembled 18 Akshohinis of soldiers eager for battle. And O Brahmanas having come thereto, they were all slain on the spot. Thus the name of that region has been explained, and the country described to you as a sacred and delightful one. The rishis said, We have a desire to know, O son of Suta, what is implied by the term Akshohini that has been used by thee. Tell us in full what is the number of horse and foot, chariots and elephants, which compose an Akshohini, for thou art fully informed. Sati said, 1 chariot, 1 elephant, 5 foot soldiers, and 3 horses form 1 padi. 3 padas make 1 senamukha. 3 senamukhas are called a gulma, 3 gulmas, a gana, 3 ganas, a gana, 3 ganas, a vahini. 3 vahinis together are called a pratana. 3 kamas form a chamu. 3 kamas form a chamu. 1 anakini, and an anakini taken 10 times forms, as it is styled by those who know, an Akshohini. Meter. O ye best of Brahmanas, arithmeticians have calculated that the number of chariots in an Akshohini is 21,1870. The number of elephants, the same. The number of foot soldiers, 109,350. The number of horses, 65,610. These, O Brahmanas, as fully explained by me, are the numbers of an Akshohini, as said by those acquainted with the principles of numbers. Me. So be. According to this calculation, were composed the 18 Akshohinis of the Kaurava and the Pandava army. Time, whose acts are wonderful, assembled them on that spot, and having made the Kauravas the cause, destroyed them all. Bhishma, acquainted with choice of weapons, fought for 10 days. Drona protected the Kaurava Vahinis for 5 days. Kama, the desolator of hostile armies, fought for 2 days. Salya for half a day. After that, lasted for half a day, the encounter with clubs between Duryodhana and Bhima. At the close of that day, half a day. At the close of that day, Aswathaman and Kripa destroyed the army of Yudhishthira in the night, while sleeping without suspicion of danger. O Sanaka, this best of narrations called Bharata, which has begun to be repeated at thy sacrifice, was formerly repeated at the sacrifice of Janamejaya by an intelligent disciple of Vyasa. It is a work whose description, diction, and sense are varied and wonderful. It contains an account of various manners and rites. It is accepted by the wise, as the state of Vairagya is by men desirous of final release. Listen, O ye ascetics, to the outlines of the several divisions, Parvas, of this history called Bharata, endued with great wisdom, of sections and feet that are wonderful and various, of subtle meanings and logical connections, and embellished with the substance of the Vedas. The initial Parva is known as Anukramanika, the second Sangraha, then Paushya, then Paloma, the fourth Astika, then Adivansa Vatarana. Following this comes the Sambhava, filled with wondrous and thrilling incidents. Then comes Jatugrihadaha, the setting fire to Adivansa Vatarana, and then Hidimbabada, the killing of Hidimba. Next is Bakabada, the slaughter of Baka. The subsequent Parva is called Swayamvara, where Panchali selects her husband using Kshatriya virtues, and Arjuna wins Draupadi for wife. Then comes Vavahika, or the marriage. After these events come Harana Harika, Kandava Daha, the burning of the Kandava forest, and Maya Darsana, the meeting with Maya, the Ashura architect. Following these incidents are Sabha, Mantra, Jarasandha, Digvijaya, or the general campaign. After Digvijaya comes Raja Suyaka, the robbing of the Argya, and Sisupala Bada, the killing of Sisupala. Then comes Diyuta, the gambling, Argya Viharana, the robbing of the Argya, and Sisupala Bada, the killing of Sisupala. After these events, Anudyuta, subsequent to gambling, Aranyaka, and Krimira Bada, the destruction of Krimira, Nano, Pitaro. The travels of Arjuna then follow, Arjuna Vigamana, Kairati. In the final portion, the epic battle between Arjuna and Mahadeva in the guise of a hunter is described. After this, Indra Loka Vigamana, the journey to the regions of Indra, then the mine of religion and virtue, the highly pathetic Indra Loka Vigamana, and the story of Nala. After this last, Tirtha Yatra, or the pilgrimage of the wise prince of the Kurus, the death of Nalapapyana. After these events, the stories of Jatasura and the battle of the Yakshas. Then the battle with the Navadakavachas, Ajagara, and Markandeya, Samasya. Then the meeting of Draupadi and Satyabhama, Goshayatra, and Murgaswapna, the dream of the deer. Then Draupadi Harana, the abduction of Draupadi, followed by Jayadratha Bhimoksana, the release of Jayadratha, and the story of Savitri, illustrating the great merit of conjugal chastity. After this last, the story of Rama. The subsequent Parva is called Kundala Harana, the theft of the earrings. That which comes next is Aranya, or the forest dwelling of Rama. The subsequent Parva is Kundala Harana, followed by Aranya, and then Virata. Then the entry of the Pandavas, and the fulfillment of their promise of living unknown for 1 year. Then comes the destruction of the Kichakas, followed by the attempt to take the Kain by the Kauravas. The subsequent Parva is the marriage of Abhimanyu with the daughter of Virata. The following Parva, of greatest wonder, is Udyoga. After this comes the story of Sanjaya Yana, the arrival of Sanjaya. Then comes Pragagara, the sleeplessness of Dhritarashtra due to anxiety. Then Yanasadi, and finally, the arrival of Krishna. Then the story of Jamadanya and Shodasarajika. Then the arrival of Krishna at the court and Bidulaputra Sasana. Then the muster of troops and the story of Sheta. Then comes the quarrel of the valiant Karna. Then the march to the field of the troops of both sides. The following Parvas have been called numbering Arathas and Adarathas. Then comes the arrival of the messenger Uluka, which kindled the wrath of the Pandavas. The subsequent Parva that follows is the story of Amba. Then comes the thrilling tale of the installation of Bhishma as commander-in-chief. Then comes the Bhagavad Gita, and then the insular region Jambu, the account about the formation of islands and the death of Bhishma. Then comes the Bhagavad Gita, and then the insular region Jambu, the account about the formation of islands and the death of Bhishma. Then the installation of Drona follows. Then the destruction of the Sansaptakas. Then the death of Abhimanyu, the death of Bhishma. Then the death of Abhimanyu, and then the vow of Arjuna to slay Jayadratha. Then the death of Jayadratha, and then Ghatotkacha's death. Then the death of Jayadratha, and then Ghatotkacha's death. Then comes the story of the death of Drona, filled with surprising incidents. The subsequent Parva is the discharge of the weapon called Narayana. Then the tales of Karna and Salya follow. Then the encounter between Narayana and Bhima and Duryodhana with clubs. Then the destruction of the Rakshasa Charvaka, who had assumed the disguise of a Brahmana to deceive Yudhishthira. Then the coronation of the wise Yudhishthira. The following Parva is known as Shraddha, describing the funeral rites performed for the slain Kauravas. Then the ascension of Bhishma to heaven. Then the horse sacrifice, which purges all sins away. The following Parva must be known as the Anujita, containing words of spiritual philosophy. Asramvasa, Patradarshana, or meeting with the spirits of the deceased sons. And the arrival of Narada. The subsequent Parva is called Mausala, filled with terrible and cruel incidents. Then comes Mahaprasthanika and the ascension to heaven. In this last are contained Vishnu Parva, Vishnu's frolics and feats as a child, the destruction of Kansa. The destruction of Kansa. The very wonderful Bhavishya Parva, containing prophecies regarding the future. The plottings of Duryodhana to send the sons of Pandu to Varanavata, the burning of Purokana, and the sleeping woman with her 5 sons in the house of Lak. The meeting of the Pandavas in the dreadful forest with Hidimba, and the slaying of her brother Hidimba by Bhima of great prowess. The birth of Ghatotkacha and the meeting of the Pandavas with Vyasa. The acquisition of Draupadi in the midst of all the Rajas by Arjuna after having successfully pierced the mark. The bringing of Draupadi to the house of her father and her marriage to the Pandavas in obedience to the injunctions of Yudhishthira. The advice administered to Yudhishthira by Vidura in the Makkha language in relation to the impending danger and the need for careful strategy. The Pandavas stay in disguise in the house of a Brahmana in the city of Akachakra, following the advice of Vyasa. The destruction of the Ashuravaka by Bhima and the amazement of the populace at the sight of his victory. The victory of Arjuna over Angaraparna, a Gandharva, on the banks of the Bhagirathi, and his resulting friendship with Angaraparna. The Pandavas' arrival in Panchala, the city of Drupada, to participate in Draupadi's Swayamvara. The fight, the defeat of Salya, Kama, and all the other crowned heads at the hands of Bhima and Arjuna of great prowess. the abode of the Pandavas in Prastha, and then their rule over one half of the kingdom. The history of Sunda and Upasunda, detailing their great and tragic battle. This Parva then treats of the departure of Arjuna for the forest according to the vow, he having seen Draupadi and Yudhishthira sitting together as he entered the chamber to take out arms for delivering the kind. This Parva then describes Arjuna's meeting on the way with Ulupi, the daughter of a Naga, serpent. It then relates his visits to several sacred spots, the birth of Vavruvahana, the deliverance by Arjuna of the 5 celestial damsels who had been turned into alligators by the imprecation of a Brahmana, the carrying away of Subhadra by Arjuna, incited thereto by her brother Krishna in the wonderful car, moving on land, water, and through mid-air, according to the wish of the rider. The burning of the forest of Khandava, the rescue of Maya by Arjuna, and the escape of the serpent. The conception in the womb of Subhadra of that prodigy of prowess, Upamanyu. The subjects of this Parva are the establishment of the grand hall by the Pandavas, their review of their retainers, the description of the Lokapalas by Narada well acquainted with the celestial regions, the preparations for the Ragasuya sacrifice, the destruction of Jarasandha, the campaign of universal conquest by the Pandavas, the arrival of the princes at the Rajasuya sacrifice with tribute, the defeat of Yudhishthira at play by the wily Sakuni, the deliverance by Dhritarashtra of his afflicted daughter-in-law Draupadi, plunged in the sea of distress caused by the gambling, the endeavors of Duryodhana to engage Yudhishthira again in the game, and the exile of the defeated Yudhishthira with his brothers. These constitute what has been called by the great Vyasa the Sabha Parva. This Parva is divided into 7th-8th sections and contains 2,507 slokas. Nedsian. The third Parva, known as Aranyaka, relating to the forest, is discussed here. This Parva details the journey of the Pandavas into the forest, led by the wise Yudhishthira, and the adoration of the sun god. Following Damya's instructions, Yudhishthira was bestowed with the power to maintain the dependent brahmanas with food and drink. Nyado. This period marked the creation of food through the grace of the sun. During this time, Vijura, who consistently spoke for Dhritarashtra's good, was expelled. He later came to the Pandavas and eventually returned to Dhritarashtra at his request. The wicked Duryodhana plotted to destroy the young forest-dwelling Pandavas, instigated by Karna, but Vyasa appeared and dissuaded him from these plans. Neither Onas Kandi. Maitreya arrived, providing Dhritarashtra with a course of action and cursing Duryodhana in the process. Bhima slew Kurmira in battle, and the Panchalas and the Vrishni princes came to support Yudhishthira after his defeat at unfair gambling by Sakuni. Dhananjaya calmed the princes of the Vrishni race, allayed Krishna's wrath, and comforted Draupadi. Krishna cheered Draupadi, and the fall of Sova was also described. Subsequently, Krishna brought Subhadra with her son to Dwaraka, and Dreshtadyumna brought Draupadi's returned son to Panchala. The sons of Pandu entered the Dwaita wood, engaging in conversation, and Vyasa came to the Pandavas, endowing Yudhishthira with the power of Pratismriti. After Vyasa's departure, the Pandavas were moved to the Kamyaka forest. Arjuna journeyed to seek weapons, battling Mahadeva in disguise and receiving weapons from the Lokapalas. Arjuna journeyed to seek weapons, battling Mahadeva in disguise, and receiving weapons from the Lokapalas. He traveled to Indra's regions to obtain arms, causing Dhritarashtra considerable anxiety. Yudhishthira's meeting and lamentations before the worshipful great sage Brihadasva brought forth the holy and deeply emotional story of Nala, showcasing Damayanti's patience and Nala's character. Yudhishthira later acquired the secrets of dice from Brihadasva. Rishi Lamasa arrived from the heavens, sharing the message of Arjuna's whereabouts with the Pandavas. The Pandavas embarked on a pilgrimage to various sacred spots, attaining great merit and virtue as a result. The great sage Narada visited the shrine of Putasta, and the high-souled Pandavas also began their pilgrimage. Karna's deprivation of his earrings by Indra was recounted, as was the sacrificial magnificence of Gaia. Next, the story of Agastya was narrated, where he ate up the Ashura Vatapi and married Lopamudra in the hope of offspring. The story of Rishyasringa, who adopted Brahmacharya from childhood, followed. Rama, the son of Jamadagni, was then portrayed with the death of Kartavirya and the Haihayas detailed. The meeting between Rama and the Pandavas, as well as the Pandavas and the Vrishnis at Prabhasa, was described. The story of Sukanya unfolded, with Kayavana, the son of Brigu, making the twins, the Aswinis, drink the Soma juice, excluded by other gods, and gaining eternal youth. King Mandhata's story was presented, followed by that of Prince Yantu and King Somaka's offering of his son in sacrifice to obtain 100 more. The excellent story of the hawk and the pigeon was recited, as well as the examination of King Sivi by Indra, Agni, and Dharma. At Janaka's sacrifice, a disputation took place between Ashtavakra and the first of logicians, Vandi, the son of Varuna, with Ashtavakra emerging victorious and releasing his father from the depths of the ocean. The stories of Yavakrita and Ravya followed, concluding with the Pandavas' departure for Gandhamadana, their abode in the Narayana asylum, and Bhima's journey to Gandhamadana at Draupadi's request in search of the sweet-scented flower. Bhima encountered Hanuman in a banana grove, battled the mighty Rakshasas and Yakshas, destroyed Ashura Jata, and eventually returned to the Kamyaka woods. Hearing of Bhima's journey, Vasudeva, Krishna, appeared to see the mighty sons of Pandu. Markandeya arrived, sharing the history of Prithu, the son of Vina, the stories of Saraswati and the Rishi Tarkya, the story of Matsya, and other old stories. Following these, the story of Indradyumna and Dihantumara unfolded, as well as the chaste wife's history. The meeting and conversation of Draupadi and Satyabhama was detailed, and the Pandavas returned to the Dwaita forest. A procession was organized to see the calves and capture Duryodhana, who was later rescued by Arjuna. Yudhishthira had a dream featuring a deer, and the Pandavas eventually re-entered the Kamyaka forest. Here, the lengthy story of Rihidranika was also explained. The story of Durvasa and Jayadratha's abduction of Draupadi from the asylum were also recounted, along with Bhima's swift pursuit and Jayadratha's ill-shaven crown at Bhima's hand. Finally, the epic story of Rama, in which Rama slew Ravana in battle, and the story of Savitri were narrated. Here, the story of Savitri is narrated, followed by Karna's ordeal when Indra seized his earrings. Afterward, Karna received a Sakti, a missile weapon, from a grateful Indra. This weapon had the unique power to kill only one person against whom it was thrown. Subsequently, the story titled Arjuna is presented, in which Dharma, the god of justice, offered advice to his son, Yudhishthira. In this story, the account is also given of how the Pandavas, after having obtained a boon, embarked on a journey towards the west. The Parva that follows is called Bharata. Upon their arrival at the dominions of Bharata, the Pandavas saw a cemetery on the outskirts of the city, where they kept their weapons. This marks their entry into the city and the outskirts, where they kept their weapons. Next, we have the slaying of the wicked Kikak, who, driven mad by lust, sought Draupadi. Then Bhima's rescue of Bharata, who was captured by enemies, and the release of the king's kine. The seizure of Bharata's kine again by the Kurus, and the defeat of all the Kurus by the single-handed Arjuna mark the end of this episode. The bestowal of Bharata's daughter Uttara for Arjuna's acceptance, on behalf of his son by Subhadra, commonly known as Upamanyu, who would be the destroyer of foes, concludes the contents of the extensive fourth Parva, called the Bharata. While the Pandavas resided in Upaplavya, desiring victory, Duryodhana and Arjuna both went to Vasudeva simultaneously. They requested, "You should render us assistance in this war." The high-souled Krishna, upon these words being spoken, replied, "O ye first of men, I, a counselor and one Aksohini of troops, which should I give to which of you?" Here, we find a description of how, when the king of Madra came to assist the Pandavas, Duryodhana deceived him with presents and hospitality, inducing him to grant a boon and then soliciting his assistance in battle. This is followed by Salya reciting the history of Indra's victory over Vritra to the Pandavas, consoling them. King Dhritarashtra, upon hearing the words of the Purohita and the story of Indra's victory, decided to send Sanjaya as an envoy to the Pandavas, in hopes of peace. Dhritarashtra's anxiety upon hearing about the Pandavas and their friends kept him awake through the nights, during which Vijura counseled him with wisdom, and Sanat Sujata recited spiritual truths to the sorrowing monarch. Nay. Sanjaya's revelation of Vasudeva and Arjuna's identity to the Pandavas, Krishna's mission to Hastinapura for peace, and Duryodhana's rejection of his embassy led us to the recounting of various stories, such as that of Damvadvaya, the search for a husband by the high-souled Matuli, the history of the sage Galava, and the training and discipline of the son of Bijula. The search for a husband by the high-souled Matuli, the history of the sage Galava, the training and discipline of the son of Bijula. Krishna's exhibition of his yoga powers in the assembly of Rajas, his taking Karna in his chariot and offering advice, and Karna's rejection of both Duryodhana and Krishna follow. The return of Krishna to Upaplavya, and the narration of all that had happened to the Pandavas mark the end of this section. Krishna's taking Karna in his chariot and offering advice, and Karna's rejection of both Duryodhana and Krishna follow. With every preparation for war made by the Pandavas, the march from Hastinapura to the battlefield ensues. Both armies prepare their troops, foot soldiers, horses, charioteers, and elephants. The narrative then details the various classes of charioteers. Subsequently, Uluka is dispatched as envoy to the Pandavas on the day previous to the battle. The story of Amba concludes the fifth Parva, the Udyoga, full of incidents relevant to war and peace. This Parva tells of the formation of the region known as Jambu and the Great Depression of Yudhishthira's army, followed by 10 days of fierce fighting. The high-souled Vasudeva, through reasons based on the philosophy of final release, drove away Arjuna's compunction, arising from his concern for his kin, whom he was preparing to slay. Krishna, witnessing the losses inflicted on the Pandava army, he swiftly descended from his chariot, ran with a dauntless breast, and wielded his driving whip to bring about Bhishma's death. Smote with piercing words Arjuna, the foremost of bowmen, placed Shikandin before him, and pierced Bhishma with his sharpest arrows, causing him to fall from his chariot. No knee. Bhishma lay stretched upon his bed of arrows for the remainder of this Parva, known as the sixth in the Bharata. In total, 117 sections were composed, with a count of 5,884 slokas, as told by Vyasa conversant with the Vedas. It begins with the installation of Drona as commander of the army. Then the vow made by Drona to capture Yudhishthira in battle to please Duryodhana. Then follows the retreat of Arjuna from the field before the Sansaptakas. Then the overthrow of Bhagadatta by Arjuna, like a second Indra in the field, with the elephant Supratika. Next comes the death of Abhimanyu, alone and unsupported, at the hands of many Maharathas, including Jayadratha. After Abhimanyu's death, Arjuna destroys 7 Akshauhinis of troops, and then Jayadratha. Afterward, Bhima enters the battlefield, destroying 7 Akshauhinis of troops, and then Jayadratha. In the Drona Parva, Arjuna, in obedience to Yudhishthira, destroys the remnant of the Sansaptakas. In the Drona Parva, the deaths of Alambusha, Srutayas, Jalasandha, Shomadatta, Virata, Drupada, Gatotkacha, and others occur. Aswathaman, excited beyond measure at the fall of his father in battle, discharges the terrible weapon Narayana. Then the glory of Rudra in connection with the burning of the 3 cities is narrated. Then Vyasa recites the glory of Krishna and Arjuna. In this is narrated the appointment of Karna's wise king of Madra as his charioteer. Then comes the rough words exchanged between Karna and Salya on their setting out for the field. Then the story of the swan and the crow, recited in insulting allusion, is narrated. Then the death of Pandya at the hands of Aswathaman. Then the death of Dandasena. Then that of Darda. Then Yudhishthira's imminent risk in single combat with Karna, in the presence of all the warriors. Then the mutual wrath of Yudhishthira and Arjuna. Then Krishna's pacification of Arjuna. In this Parva, Bhima, in fulfillment of his vow, having ripped open Dasasana's breast in battle, drinks the blood of his heart. Then Arjuna slays the great Karna in single combat. Readers of the Bharata call this the 8th Parva. The number of sections in this is 69, and the number of slokas is 4,960. After all the great warriors have been slain, the king of Madra becomes the leader of the Kaurava army. Then comes the fall of the great Salya at the hands of Yudhishthira, the just. Here also is the death of Sakuni in battle at the hands of Sahadeva. Upon only a small remnant of the troops remaining alive after the immense slaughter, Duryodhana goes to the lake and, creating for himself room within its waters, lies stretched there for some time. Then is narrated the reception of this intelligence by Bhima from the fowlers. Then is narrated how, moved by the insulting speeches of the intelligent Yudhishthira, Bhima goes in search of Duryodhana. Then comes the encounter with clubs between Duryodhana and Bhima. Then the arrival of Balarama occurs at the time of this encounter. Then is described the sacredness of the Saraswati. Then the progress of the encounter with clubs is described, and the fracture of Duryodhana's thighs in battle by Bhima with a terrific hurl of his mace is narrated. These all have been described in the wonderful 9th Parva. In this, the number of sections is 59, and the number of slokas composed by the great Vyasa, the spreader of the fame of the Kauravas, is 3,220. On the Pandavas having gone away, the mighty charioteers, Kritavarman, Kripa, and the son of Drona, came to the field of battle in the evening, and there saw King Duryodhana lying on the ground, his thighs broken, and himself covered with blood. Then the great charioteer, the son of Drona, of terrible wrath, vowed, without killing all the Panchalas including Drishtadyumna, and the Pandavas also with all their allies, I will not take off my armor. And wending to the gate of the camp, he saw there a Rakshasa of fearful visage, his head reaching to the very heavens, guarding the entrance. And then, accompanied by Kritavarman and Kripa, he slew all the sons of Draupadi, all the Panchalas with Drishtadyumna and others, together with their relatives, sleeping unsuspectingly in the night. Then Draupadi, distressed at the death of her sons and brothers and father, sat before her lords, resolved to kill herself by fasting. Then Bhima, of terrible prowess, moved by the words of Draupadi, resolved to please her, and speedily taking up his mace, followed in wrath the son of his preceptor in arms. The son of Drona, from fear of Bhimasena, impelled by the fates and moved also by anger, discharged a celestial weapon, saying, "This is for the destruction of all the Pandavas." Then Krishna, saying, "This shall not be," neutralized S01's speech. Then Arjuna neutralized that weapon with one of his own. Seeing the wicked S01's destructive intentions, Dwaipayana and Krishna pronounced curses on him, which the latter returned. Pandava then deprived the mighty warrior in chariot S01 of the jewel on his head, and became exceedingly glad, and boastful of their success, made a present of it to the sorrowing Draupadi. Thus the 10th Parva, called Saptika, is recited. The great Vyasa has composed this in 18 sections. The number of slokas also composed in this by the great reciter of sacred truths is 870. After this recitation, the highly tragic Parva called Stri is recited, where Dhritarashtra, the seer with a prophetic eye, grief-stricken at the loss of his children and harboring enmity towards Bhima, breaks a statue of hard iron deftly placed before him by Krishna. Then Vidura removes Dhritarashtra's attachment to worldly things by arguments pointing to his final release, and comforts the wise monarch. The subsequent events of the distressed Dhritarashtra, accompanied by his ladies, are described as they head towards the battlefield of the Kauravas. Here follow the sorrowful cries of the wives of the slain heroes. Then follows the anger and unconsciousness of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra at the sight of their dead heroes, their unreturning sons, brothers, and fathers. Krishna then pacifies the wrath of the heroes lying dead on the field. Consoled by Krishna, Gandhari, distressed at the death of her sons and grandsons, agrees to the cremation of their bodies with proper rites by Yudhishthira, the wise and virtuous monarch. Upon completion of the rites, the presentation of water for the manes of the deceased princes begins. The story of Kunti's acknowledgement of Karna as her secretly born son is revealed. All these events have been described by the great Rishi Vyasa in the highly tragic 11th Parva. Its reading stirs feelings of sorrow and even tears. The Parva consists of 27 sections and 775 slokas. The 12th Parva, Santi, increases understanding and relates the penitence of Yudhishthira for having slain his fathers, brothers, sons, maternal uncles, and matrimonial relations. In this Parva, Bhishma, from his bed of arrows, expounds various systems of duties valuable for kings interested in knowledge. By understanding these teachings, a person attains extensive knowledge. The mysteries of final emancipation have also been explained. The next is the excellent Anusasana Parva, where Yudhishthira is reconciled to himself upon hearing Bhishma's exposition of duties. This Parva covers rules in detail, as well as the duties related to Dharma and Artha, charity and its merits, the qualifications of the Dhanis, and the supreme ride regarding gifts. In this has been described the ascension of Bhishma to heaven. This is the 13th Parva, which imparts accurate instructions on the various duties of men. The number of sections in this is 146, and the number of slokas is 8,000. Then comes the 14th Parva, Aswamdika. In this is the wonderful story of Samvarta and Maruta. Then the Pandavas discover golden treasuries, and the birth of Parikshit, who is revived by Krishna after being burned by Aswathaman's celestial weapon. The birth of Parikshit, who is revived by Krishna after being burned by Aswathaman's celestial weapon. The battles of Arjuna the son of Pandu, while following the sacrificial horse that had been set loose, are described, along with various princes who seized it in anger. The great risk Arjuna faced in his encounter with Vavruvahana, the son of Chitrangada, is shown. The story of the mongoose during the horse sacrifice is also narrated. This is the most marvelous Parva called Aswamdika, consisting of 103 sections and 3,320 slokas, composed by Vyasa, whose knowledge is true. The 15th Parva is named Asramvasika. In this, Dhritarashtra abdicates the kingdom, accompanied by Gandhari and Vidura, and retires to the woods. Seeing this, the virtuous Pritha also follows them, abandoning the court of her sons. In this is described the remarkable meeting between them, arranged through the kindness of Vyasa, where Dhritarashtra encounters the spirits of his slain children, grandchildren, and other princes who have returned from the other world. Afterward, Dhritarashtra, along with the spirits of his slain family members, attains the highest fruit of his meritorious actions. In this Parva, Vidura, who has always adhered to virtue, achieves the most meritorious state. The learned son of Gavalgana, Sanjaya, also of passions under control, and the foremost of ministers, attains the blessed state. In this, Yudhishthira, the just meets Narada, and learns about the extinction of the race of the Parvas, as well as the destiny of the Vrishnis. This is the very wonderful Parva called Asramvasika, consisting of 42 sections, and the number of slokas composed by Vyasa, who is cognizant of truth, is 1506. After this, come the painful incidents in the Maushala Parva. The mighty heroes of the Vrishni race, scarred from countless battles, cursed by a Brahmana and deprived of reason due to drink, fight one another on the shores of the salt sea, using the araka grass which becomes their means of the destruction. In this, both Balarama and Krishna, after causing the extermination of their race, yield to the irresistible force of time. Arjuna, who is grieving upon seeing his people wiped out, proceeds to Dwaravati. There he finds the city without its Vrishni residents and becomes extremely sorrowful upon seeing the fallen heroes of the Yadu race. He then cremates the bodies of Krishna, Balarama, and the main figures of the Vrishni race. As he sets out on his journey, accompanied by the women, children, the old, and the infirm, the remnants of the Yadu race, they meet a severe calamity. Arjuna approaches Yudhishthira when he witnesses his bow Gandiva losing its power and his celestial weapons becoming unusable. Becoming despondent in the face of all this, acting on Vyasa's advice, Arjuna seeks permission from Yudhishthira to follow the sannyasa lifestyle. In this, the foremost among men, the Pandavas, having abandoned their kingdom, travel with Draupadi on their great journey called Mahaprasthana. They encounter Agni upon arriving at the shore of the red waters. Agni asks them questions, and Arjuna worships him and returns the excellent celestial bow called Gandiva to him. Leaving his brothers one by one, and Yudhishthira going without once looking back, the Pandavas proceed on their journey. This 17th Parva is called Mahaprasthanika, consisting of 3 sections and 320 slokas, as told by Vyasa, who is cognizant of truth. The Parva that follows this, you must know, is the extraordinary one called the Svarga, that contains celestial incidents. Upon seeing the celestial chariot arrive to take him, Yudhishthira, moved by kindness towards the dog that accompanied him, refused to board. Observing the illustrious Yudhishthira's steadfast adherence to virtue, Dharma, the god of justice, abandoned his canine form and revealed himself to the date. King Got. Then Yudhishthira ascending to heaven felt a great deal of pain. Dharma and Indra then showed Yudhishthira the region where his brothers were under the discipline of Yama. Next, the celestial messenger led Yudhishthira to hell through deception. The illustrious Yudhishthira, the embodiment of justice, heard the heart-rending lamentations of his brothers in that region. Before Yudhishthira, after leaving his human body, through a plunge in the celestial Ganges, attained to the region that his actions merited. He began to live in joy, respected by Indra and all other gods. This is the 18th Parva, as narrated by the illustrious Vyasa. The number of slokas composed by the great Rishi in this Parva is 209. In the appendix, Kita are the Harivansa and the Vavashya. The Harivansa contains 12,000 slokas. 18 Akshauhinis of troops came together for battle. The encounter that ensued was terrible and lasted for 18 days. He who knows the 4 Vedas, all the Angas and Upanishads, but does not know this history, Bharata, cannot be considered wise. As the 3 worlds depend on the 5 elements, so do the Puranas depend on this history. There is not a story current in the world that does not depend on this history. A poet cannot surpass the Bharata, as the domestic Rama cannot be surpassed by the other three Ramas. Ye ascetics, shake off all inaction. Let your hearts be fixed on virtue, for virtue is the one and only friend of him that has gone to the other world. A Brahmana, in spite of committing many sins through his senses each day, can be freed from them all by reading the Bharata during the evening. By reading the Bharata during the first twilight in the morning, those who give 100 kine with gold-mounted horns to a Brahmana well-versed in the Vedas and all branches of learning, and those who daily listen to the sacred narrations of the Bharata acquire equal merit. Thus ends the section called Parva Sangraha of the Adi Parva of the blessed Mahabharata. Janamejaya, the son of Parikshit, was, with his brothers, attending his long sacrifice on the plains of Kurukshetra. His brothers were three, Srutesena, Ugrasena, and Binhasena. And as they were sitting at the sacrifice, there arrived at the spot an offspring of Rama, the celestial bitch. And belabored by the brothers of Janamejaya, he ran away to his mother, crying in pain. And his mother, seeing him crying exceedingly, asked him, "Why criest thou so? Who hath beaten thee?" And being thus questioned, he said unto his mother, "I have been belabored by the brothers of Janamejaya." And his mother Rama, hearing this and much distressed at the affliction of her son, went to the place where Janamejaya with his brothers was at his long-extending sacrifice. And she addressed Janamejaya in anger, saying, "This my son hath committed no fault. As ye have beaten my son who hath committed no fault, therefore shall evil come upon ye when ye least expect it." Janamejaya, thus addressed by the celestial bitch, Rama became exceedingly alarmed and dejected. And after the sacrifice was concluded, returned to Hastinapura, and began to take great pains in searching for a Purohita, who could, by procuring absolution for his sin, neutralize the effect of the curse. One day, Janamejaya, the son of Parikshit, while a-hunting, observed in a particular part of his dominions a hermitage where dwelt a certain rishi of fame, Srutasrava. He had a son named Somasrava, deeply engaged in ascetic devotions. "O Janamejaya, this my son, deep in ascetic devotions, accomplished in the study of the Vedas, and endued with the full force of my asceticism, is born of the womb of a she-snake that had drunk my vital fluid. If thou canst put up with it, then thou take him." And giving these directions to his brothers, the king marched towards Takshashila and brought that country under his authority. About this time there was a rishi, Ayodhya by name, and Ayodhya had 3 disciples, Upamanyu, Aruni, and Veda. And the rishi bade one of these disciples, Aruni of Panchala, to go and stop up a breach in the watercourse of a certain field. And Aruni of Panchala, thus ordered by his preceptor, repaired to the spot. And he was distressed because he could not do his preceptor's bidding. But at length he saw a way and said, "Well, I will do it in this way." He then went down into the breach and lay down himself there. And the water was thus confined. And some time after, the preceptor Ayodhya asked his other disciples where Aruni of Panchala was. And they answered, "Sir, he hath been sent by yourself, saying, Go, stop up the breach in the watercourse of the field." Thus reminded Damya. And having arrived there, he shouted, "Ho Aruni of Panchala, where art thou? Come hither, my child." And Aruni, hearing the voice of his preceptor, speedily came out of the watercourse and stood before his preceptor. The preceptor, thus addressed, replied, "Because in getting up from the ditch, thou hast opened the watercourse. Thenceforth shalt thou be called Adalika, as a mark of thy preceptor's favor." The name of another of Ayodhya Dhamya's disciples was Upamanyu, and Dhamya appointed him, saying, "Go, my child, Upamanyu, look after the kine." And according to his preceptor's orders, he went to tend the kine. And his preceptor, seeing him in good condition of body, asked him, "Upamanyu, my child, upon what dost thou support thyself? Thou art exceedingly plump." And he answered, "Sir, I support myself by begging." And his preceptor said, "What is obtained in alms should not be used by thee without offering it to me." And Upamanyu, thus told, went away. And having obtained alms, he offered the same to his preceptor, and his preceptor took from him even the whole. And his preceptor, perceiving that he still continued to be of good condition of body, said unto him, "Upamanyu, my child, I take from thee even the whole of what thou obtainest in alms, without leaving anything for thee. How then dost thou, at present, contrive to support thyself?" And Upamanyu, thus questioned, answered, "Sir, I now live upon the milk of these cows." And his preceptor thereupon told him, "It is not lawful for thee to appropriate the milk without having first obtained my consent." And Upamanyu, having assented to the justice of these observations, went away to tend the kine. And restrained by his preceptor, he feedeth not on alms, nor hath he anything else to eat. He drinketh not of the milk, nor tasteth he of the froth. And Upamanyu one day, oppressed by hunger, when in a forest, ate of the leaves of the arca, Asclepias gigantea. And his eyes being affected by the pungent, acrimonious, crude, and saline properties of the leaves which he had eaten, he became blind. And as he was crawling about, he fell into a pit. And upon his not returning that day, when the sun was sinking down behind the summit of the western mountains, the preceptor observed to his disciples that Upamanyu was not yet come, and they told him that he had gone out with the cattle. The preceptor then said, "Upamanyu, being restrained by me from the use of everything, is, of course, and therefore doth not come home until it be late. Let us then go in search of him." And having said this, he went with his disciples into the forest, and began to shout, saying, "O Upamanyu, where art thou?" And Upamanyu, hearing his preceptor's voice, answered in a loud tone, "Here I am at the bottom of a well." And his preceptor asked him how he happened to be there. And his preceptor thereupon told him, "Glorify the twin Aswins, the joint physicians of the gods, and they will restore thee thy sight." And Upamanyu, thus directed by his preceptor, began to glorify the twin Aswins in the following words of the Rig Veda. "Ye have existed before the creation. Ye first-born beings, ye are displayed in this wondrous universe of 5 elements. I desire to obtain you by the help of the knowledge derived from hearing, and of meditation, for ye are infinite. Ye are the course itself of nature and intelligent soul that pervades that course. Ye are birds of beauteous feathers perched on the body that is like to a tree. Ye are without the 3 common attributes of every soul. Ye are incomparable. Ye are golden eagles. Ye are the essence into which all things disappear. Ye are free from error and know no deterioration. Ye are of beauteous beaks that would not unjustly strike, and are victorious in every encounter. Ye certainly prevail over time." And Upamanyu, thus directed by his preceptor, began to glorify the twin Aswins in the following words of the Rig Veda: "Ye have existed before the creation. Ye firstborn beings, ye are displayed in this wondrous universe of 5 elements. I desire to obtain you by the help of the knowledge derived from hearing and of meditation, for ye are infinite. Ye Aswins, ye are the creators of that calf. The year is but the nave of a wheel to which is attached 720 spokes representing as many days and nights. The circumference of this wheel, represented by 12 months, is without end. This wheel is full of delusions and knows no deterioration. It affects all creatures, whether to this or of the other worlds. Ye Aswins, this wheel of time is set in motion by you. The wheel of time, as represented by the year, has a nave represented by the 6 seasons. The number of spokes attached to that nave is 12, as represented by the 12 signs of the zodiac. Ye Aswins, this wheel of time is set in motion by you. The presiding deities of time abide in that wheel. In the beginning ye created the 10 points of the universe. Then have ye placed the sun and the sky above. The rishis, according to the course of the same sun, perform their sacrifices, and the gods and men, according to what hath been appointed for them, perform their sacrifices also, enjoying the fruits of those acts. Mixing the 3 colors, ye have produced all the objects of sight. It is from these objects that the universe hath sprung, whereon the gods and men are engaged in their respective occupations, and indeed all creatures endued with life. Ye Aswins, I adore you. I also adore the sky, which is your handiwork. Ye are the ordainers of the fruits of all acts from which even the gods are not free. Ye are the parents of all. As males and females, it is ye that swallow the food which subsequently develops into the life-creating fluid and blood. The newborn infant sucks the teat of its mother. Indeed, it is ye that take the shape of the infant. Ye Aswins, grant me my sight to protect my life. The twin Aswins, thus invoked, appeared and said, We are satisfied. Here is a cake for thee. Take and eat it. And Upamanyu, thus addressed, replied, Your words, O Aswins, have never proved untrue. But without first offering this cake to my preceptor, I dare not take it. And the Aswins thereupon told him, Formerly, thy preceptor had invoked us. We thereupon gave him a cake like this, and he took it without offering it to his master. Do thou do that which thy preceptor did. Thus addressed, Upamanyu again said unto them, O Aswins, I crave your pardon. Without offering it to my preceptor, I dare not apply this cake. The Aswins then said, O, we are pleased with this devotion of thine to thy preceptor. Thy master's teeth are of black iron. Thine shall be of gold. Thou shalt be restored to sight, and shall have good fortune. Thus spoken to by the Aswins, he recovered his sight, and having gone to his preceptor's presence, he saluted him and told him all. And his preceptor was well pleased with him and said unto him, Thou shalt obtain prosperity, even as the Aswins have said. All the Vedas shall shine in thee, and all the Dharma Sastras. Thou shalt obtain prosperity, even as the Aswins have said. All the Vedas shall shine in thee, and all the Dharma Sastras. And this was the trial of Upamanyu. Then Veda, the other disciple of Ayodhya, was called. His preceptor once addressed him, saying, Veda, my child, tarry some time in my house and serve thy preceptor. It shall be to thy profit. And Veda, having signified his assent, tarried long in the family of his preceptor, mindful of serving him. Like an ox under the burthens of his master, he bore heat and cold, hunger and thirst, at all times without a murmur. And it was not long before his preceptor was satisfied, and as a consequence of that satisfaction, Veda obtained good fortune and universal knowledge, and this was the trial of Veda. And Veda, having received permission from his preceptor, and leaving the latter's residence after the completion of his studies, entered the domestic mode of life. And while living in his own house, he got 3 pupils, and he never told them to perform any work or to obey implicitly his own behests. For having himself experienced much woe while abiding in the family of his preceptor, he liked not to treat them with severity. After a certain time, Janamejaya and Pashya, both of the order of Kshatriyas, arriving at his residence, appointed the Brahmin, Veda, as their spiritual guide, Upadhyaya. And one day, while about to depart upon some business related to a sacrifice, he employed one of his disciples, Utanka, to take charge of his household. "Utanka," said he, "whatsoever should have to be done in my house, let it be done by thee without neglect." And while Utanka was residing there, the females of his preceptor's house, having assembled, addressed him and said, "O Utanka, thy mistress is in that season when connubial connection might be fruitful." And Utanka, thus addressed, said unto those women, "It is not proper for me to do this at the bidding of women. I have not been enjoined by my preceptor to do aught that is improper." After a while, his preceptor returned from his journey, and his preceptor, having learnt all that had happened, became well pleased, and addressing Utanka, said, "Utanka, my child, what favor shall I bestow on thee? Let me do something that you wish, for it hath been said, he who bestoweth instruction contrary to usage, and he who receiveth it contrary to usage, one of the two dieth, and enmity springeth up between the two." And his preceptor then said, "My dear Utanka, thou hast often told me of your desire to bring something by way of acknowledgement for the instruction thou hast received. Go then in, and ask thy mistress what thou art to bring." And thus directed by his preceptor, Utanka addressed his preceptress, saying, "Madam, I have obtained my master's leave to go home, and I am desirous of bringing something agreeable to thee as honorarium for the instruction I have received, in order that I may not depart as his debtor. Go unto King Pashya, and beg of him the pair of earrings worn by his queen, and bring them hither. The 4th day hence is a sacred day when I wish to appear before the Brahmanas, who may dine at my house, decked with these earrings. Then accomplish this, O Utanka. If thou shouldst succeed, good fortune shall attend thee. If not, what good canst thou expect?" Utanka, thus commanded, took his departure. And as he was passing along the road, he saw a bull of extraordinary size, and a man of uncommon stature mounted thereon. And as he was passing along the road, he saw a bull of extraordinary size, and a man of uncommon stature mounted thereon. And that man addressed Utanka and said, "Eat thou of the dung of this bull." Utanka, however, was unwilling to comply. The man said again, "O Utanka, eat of it without scrutiny. Thy master ate of it before." And Utanka signified his assent, and ate of the dung and drank of the urine of that bull, and rose respectfully, and washing his hands and mouth, went to where King Pashya was. On arriving at the palace, Utanka saw Pashya seated on his throne, and approaching him, Utanka saluted the monarch by pronouncing blessings and said, "I am come as a petitioner to thee." And King Pashya, having returned Utanka's salutations, said, "Sir, what shall I do for thee?" And Utanka said, "I came to beg of thee a pair of earrings as a present to my preceptor. It behoveth thee to give me the earrings worn by the queen." And Utanka went into the women's apartments, but as he could not discover the queen, he again addressed the king, saying, "It is not proper that I should be treated by thee with deceit. Thy queen is not in the private apartments, for I could not find her." The king thus addressed, considered for a while, and replied, "Recollect, sir, with attention whether thou art not in a state of defilement in consequence of contact with the impurities of a repast. My queen is a chaste wife, and cannot be seen by anyone who is impure owing to contact with the leavings of a repast. No, it shouldn't." And Utanka, having agreed to this, sat down with his face towards the east, and washed his face, hands, and feet thoroughly. And he then, without a noise, sipped thrice of water free from scum and froth, and not warm, and just sufficient to reach his stomach. And he then touched with water the apertures of his organs, eyes, ears, etc. And having done all this, he once more entered the apartments of the women. And this time he saw the queen. And as the queen perceived him, she saluted him respectfully, and said, "Welcome, sir. Command me what I have to do. You seen." And Utanka said unto her, "It behoveth thee to give me those earrings of thine. I beg them as a present for my preceptor." And the queen, having been highly pleased with Utanka's conduct, and considering that Utanka as an object of charity could not be passed over, took off her earrings and gave them to him. And she said, "These earrings are very much sought after by Takshaka, the king of the serpents. Therefore, shouldst thou carry them with the greatest care." And Utanka, being told this, said unto the queen, "Lady, be under no apprehension. Takshaka, chief of the serpents, is not able to overtake me." And having said this, and taking leave of the queen, he went back into the presence of Portia. And having said this, and taking leave of the queen, he went back into the presence of Portia, and said, "Portia, I am gratified." Then Portia said to Utanka, "A fit object of charity can only be had at long intervals. Thou art a qualified guest, therefore do I desire to perform a sraddha. Tarry thou a little." And Utanka replied, "Yes, I will tarry, and beg that the clean provisions that are ready may be soon brought in." And the king, having signified his assent, entertained Utanka duly. And Utanka, seeing that the food placed before him had hair in it, and also that it was cold, thought it unclean. And he said unto Portia, "Thou givest me food that is unclean, therefore shalt thou lose thy sight." And Portia in answer said, "And because dost thou impute uncleanliness to food that is clean, therefore shalt thou be without issue." And Utanka replied, "It behoveth thee not, after having offered me unclean food, to curse me in return. Satisfy thyself by ocular proof." And Portia, seeing the food alleged to be unclean, satisfied himself of its uncleanliness. And Portia, having ascertained that the food was truly unclean, being cold and mixed with hair, prepared as it was by a woman with unbraided hair, began to pacify the Rishi Utanka. And Portia began to pacify the Rishi Utanka, saying, "Sir, the food placed before thee is cold, and doth contain hair, having been prepared without sufficient care. Therefore, I pray thee, pardon me. Let me not become blind." And Utanka, having said this, departed with the earrings. On the road, Utanka perceived coming towards him a naked, idle beggar, sometimes coming in view, and sometimes disappearing. And Utanka put the earrings on the ground and went for water. In the meantime, the beggar came quickly to the spot, and taking up the earrings, ran away. And Utanka, having completed his ablutions in water, and purified himself, and having also reverently bowed down to the gods, and his spiritual masters, pursued the thief with the utmost speed. But at that instant, the person ceased, quitting the form of a beggar and assuming his real form, viz. that of Takshaka, speedily entered a large hole open in the ground. And Utanka, recollecting the words of the queen, pursued the serpent, and began to dig open the hole with a stick, but was unable to make much progress. And Indra, beholding his distress, sent his thunderbolt, Vajra, to his assistance. Then the thunderbolt entering that stick enlarged that hole. And having entered it, he beheld the region of the serpents infinite in extent, filled with hundreds of palaces and elegant mansions with turrets and domes and gateways, abounding with wonderful places for various games and entertainments. And Utanka then glorified the serpents by the following slokas. Ye serpents, subjects of King Airavata, splendid in battle and showering weapons in the field like lightning-charged clouds driven by the winds, handsome and of various forms and decked with many-colored earrings, ye children of Airavata, ye shine like the sun in the firmament. On the northern banks of the Ganges are many habitations of serpents. There I constantly adore the great serpents. Merme, come down, Banzao, Gun. Who except Airavata would desire to move in the burning rays of the sun? When Dhritarashtra, Airavata's brother, goes out, 28,008 serpents follow him as his attendants. Ye who move near him, and ye who stay at a distance from him, I adore all of you that have Airavata for your elder brother. Mim Ben Sir Kalishiwa. I adore thee also, to obtain the earrings, O Takshaka, who formerly dwelt in Kurukshetra and the forest of Pandava. Takshaka and Aswazina, ye are constant companions who dwell in Kurukshetra on the banks of the Ikshimati. I also adore the illustrious Srutasena, the younger brother of Takshaka, who resided at the holy place called Mahadyamna, with a view to obtaining the chiefship of the serpents. The Brahmana Rishi Utanka, having saluted the chief serpents in this manner, obtained not, however, the earrings, and he thereupon became very thoughtful. And when he saw that he obtained not the earrings, even though he had adored the serpents, he then looked about him, and beheld two women at a loom, weaving a piece of cloth with a fine shuttle, and in the loom were black and white threads. And he likewise saw a wheel, with 12 spokes, turned by 6 boys. And when he saw that he obtained not the earrings, even though he had adored the serpents, he then looked about him, and beheld 2 women at a loom weaving a piece of cloth with a fine shuttle. And in the loom were black and white threads. And he likewise saw a wheel, with 12 spokes, turned by 6 boys. And he also saw a man with a handsome horse. Idoname, Pitshom, Pisa, and say that I did so. Unpinen, go. And he began to address them the following mantras. This wheel, whose circumference is marked by 24 divisions, representing as many lunar changes, is furnished with 300 spokes. It is set in continual motion by 6 boys, the seasons. These damsels, representing universal nature, are weaving without intermission a cloth with threads black and white, and thereby ushering into existence the manifold worlds and the beings that inhabit them. Thou wielder of the thunder, the protector of the universe, the slayer of Ritra and Namuchi, thou illustrious one who wearest the black cloth and displayest truth and untruth in the universe, thou who ownest for thy carrier the horse which was received from the depths of the ocean, and which is but another form of Agni, the god of fire, I bow to thee. Thou supreme lord, thou lord of the 3 worlds, O Purandara. Then the man with the horse said unto Utanka, I am gratified by this thy adoration. What good shall I do to thee? And Utanka replied, Even let the serpents be brought under my control." Then the man rejoined, "Blow into this horse." And Utanka blew into that horse. And from the horse thus blown into, there issued, from every aperture of his body, flames of fire with smoke, by which the region of the Nagas was about to be consumed. And Takshaka, surprised beyond measure, and terrified by the heat of the fire, hastily came out of his abode, taking the earrings with him, and said unto Utanka, "Pray, sir, take back the earrings." And Utanka took them back. But Utanka, having recovered his earrings, thought, "Oh, this is that sacred day of my preceptress. I am at a distance. How can I, therefore, show my regard for her?" And when Utanka was anxious about this, the man addressed him and said, "Ride this horse, Utanka, and he will in a moment carry thee to thy master's abode." And Utanka, having signified his assent, mounted the horse, and presently reached his preceptor's house. And his preceptress that morning, after having bathed, was dressing her hair sitting, thinking of uttering a curse on Utanka if he should not return within time. But, in the meantime, Utanka entered his preceptor's abode, and paid his respects to his preceptress, and presented her the earrings. "Utanka," said she, "thou hast arrived at the proper time at the proper place. Welcome, my child. Thou art innocent, and therefore I do not curse thee. Good fortune is even before thee. Let thy wishes be crowned with success." Then Utanka waited on his preceptor, and his preceptor said, "Thou art welcome. What hath occasioned thy long absence?" And Utanka replied to his preceptor, "Sir, in the execution of this, my business obstruction was offered by Takshaka, the king of serpents. Therefore, I had to go to the region of the Nagas. Janamejaya. There I saw two damsels sitting at a loom, weaving a fabric with black and white threads. Pray, what is that? There likewise I beheld a wheel with 12 spokes ceaselessly turned by 6 boys. Who is also the man that I saw, and what the horse of extraordinary size likewise beheld by me? And when I was on the road, I also saw a bull with a man mounted thereon, by whom I was endearingly accosted thus, Utanka, eat of the dung of this bull, which was also eaten by thy master. So I ate of the dung of that bull according to his words, who also is he? And his preceptor thus addressed said unto him, The 2 damsels thou hast seen are Data and Vidhata. The black and white threads denote night and day. The wheel of 12 spokes, turned by the 6 boys, signified the year comprising 6 seasons. The man is Parjanya, the deity of rain. The horse is Agni, the god of fire. The bull that thou hast seen on the road is Airavata, the king of elephants. The man mounted thereon is Indra. The dung of the bull which was eaten by thee was Amrita. It was certainly for this last that thou hast not met with death in the region of the Nagas, and Indra, who is my friend, having been mercifully inclined, showed thee favor. It is for this that thou returnest safe, with the earrings about thee. Then, O thou amiable one, I give thee leave to depart, Daikai. Thou shalt obtain good fortune. And Utanka, having obtained his master's leave, moved by anger, and resolved to avenge himself on Takshaka, proceeded towards Hastinapura. That excellent Brahmana soon reached Hastinapura. Then Utanka waited upon King Janamejaya, who had some time before returned victorious from Takshashila. And Utanka saw the victorious monarch surrounded on all sides by his ministers, and he pronounced benedictions on him in a proper form, and Utanka addressed the monarch at the proper moment, in speech of correct accent and melodious sounds, saying, "O thou the best of monarchs! How is it that thou spendest thy time like a child when there is another matter that urgently demandeth thy attention?" So he said, the monarch Janamejaya, thus addressed, saluting that excellent Brahmana, replied unto him, "In cherishing these my subjects, I do discharge the duties of my noble tribe. Say, what is that business to be done by me, and which hath brought thee hither?" The foremost of Brahmanas, and distinguished beyond all for good deeds, thus addressed by the excellent monarch of large heart, replied unto him, "O king, the business is thy own that demandeth thy attention, therefore do it, please. O thou king of kings! Thy father was deprived of life by Takshaka. Therefore, do thou avenge thy father's death on that vile serpent. Ah, nay. Ow. The time hath come, I think, for the act of vengeance ordained by the fates. Go then avenge the death of thy magnanimous father, who being bitten without cause by that vile serpent, was reduced to 5 elements, even like a tree stricken by thunder." So he continued. The monarch, having heard these words, was enraged with Takshaka. By the speech of Utanka was inflamed the prince, even as the sacrificial fire with clarified butter. Moved by grief also, in the presence of Utanka, the prince asked his ministers the particulars of his father's journey to the regions of the blessed. And when he heard all about the circumstances of his father's death from the lips of Utanka, he was overcome with pain and sorrow. And thus endeth the section called Pajya of the Adi Parva of the blessed Mahabharata.
भारत की है कहानी सदियों से भी पुरानी है, ज्ञान की ये गंगा ऋषियों की अमर वाणी, ये विश्व